welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my weekly deck review. These are the decks that I have been working with this week. I will share with you my thoughts on the tarot deck and the oracle deck that I worked with basically exclusively for this past week and what I'm going to be working with next week. So this is a really fun video series that I enjoy doing because it allows me to share with you my real thoughts after working with a deck exclusively for a period of time. And I usually take a good amount of time to sort of study and connect with the decks that I'm working with during that time. So it's kind of like the opposite of a well, not quite the opposite. It's like something a little deeper than a first impressions, and it's usually the point at which I know if a deck is going to work for me or not. So, with that being said, let's just jump right into it. The tarot deck that I was working with this week is the Brady Tarot. So this does come in a really lovely wooden box, but of course you know me, and when I'm working with it I really wanted to have a bag for it. So this is the Peggy bag that I snatched from her collection. It's like a really pretty red color with all these leaves all over it. So it felt very nature-y, and the color theme just seemed to work. This is the backs of the Brady Tarot. I have to say, before I even get into images or anything, this card stock, this deck has the most luxurious tactile feel of any deck I have ever touched. That could sound really dirty in the wrong context, but I am saying deck. YouTube, don't put that weird thing in the CC down below. Deck. It is so soft. Sorry. I'm just being ridiculous. I'm still riding off of energy from Peggy and my live. I'm filming this on Saturday and we did a live today and we were insane, but as usual, these feel like velvet or like a rose petal. It actually makes me think of the card stock that the True Black Tarot is supposed to be. Like from the promos I saw, I don't have that deck, but the promo videos I saw about the True Black Tarot talked about like a rose petal feel to the cards. I think it must be something like this. If anybody has Brady and has backed the True Black Tarot, I really want to know if the cardstock feels the same, because of this, I want to rub it on my body. Like, I know that sounds really dirty, but like, it's just so soft and like I want to pet it. It's hard to describe. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's not too stiff. Like, they still bend, they shuffle beautifully, and they have that really, really, really nice matte gilding where it's gilded, but it's not that really shiny gold. They're so pretty. I even like the backs, and it's like teeth. And I don't know why, but in the center here I see it like teeth. I fell in love with this deck pretty hard this week. I absolutely adore the keywords. But you know what I like even more than the keywords? Because they don't always match up the way that you think that they should. So that can be a little jarring, especially if you're like a die-hard Rider-Waite-Smith kind of reader, or even a numerological reader, because it doesn't follow. Like, this is a perfect example. This is the Seven of Cups, and we think of the Seven of Cups as the card of daydreaming and fantasies and getting lost in choices and not really sure what you want to do, kind of being a little bit ungrounded. And what's interesting is that this card talks about how these, I think they're beavers in this deck? Yeah, the beavers, they're so focused on what's happening up here that they haven't even noticed that everything's going wrong down here. So the word breach, when you understand the context of what is being pictured here, makes perfect sense. But I have to tell you that one of the coolest discoveries about this deck is that when working with the guidebook, which by the way is written by Rachel Pollack, so it should be no surprise at all that I absolutely love it. When working with the guidebook, which also has that really lovely like suede feel to it, one thing that I was really surprised to discover is that every single card taught me something about nature. Each one of these animals or scenes has been depicted to show a very specific situation, circumstance, or animal. And these are not the kind of animals that you would typically expect to see in an animal or nature deck. And I learned a lot. Like a lot. And so as a result, the stories from the cards, the descriptions, the meaning of the cards is really sticking with me. So let me see if I can find you a good example. Okay, here's a perfect example. So this is the Ten of Feathers, which is the Ten of Wands burden. And this is actually, I believe, like some kind of a turkey. And I'm not going to try to quote the exact kind of turkey, but there's some kind of a turkey here that is holding on to some kind of flighted bird's feathers. And it's like a turkey that really, really, really wants to be something else. Like it really wants to fly. And so it's holding onto all of these feathers, trying to sort of get to somewhere that it's not able to get. I'm terrible at relaying this. I understand what it means, and I know how to translate that into a reading because I understand what the author was trying to get across, what Rachel Pollack was getting across in her description, and what the artist was trying to show. And I love this card, although I didn't actually draw it this week. I did not actually take hardly any Instagram pictures of this deck this week, partly because I kept forgetting my reading cloth at home, which I'll talk about again in a minute. But I sunk deep into this, and I really spent some time looking at all of the images. I read basically the entire guidebook. I love this deck. And in fact, one of the other things that I really love about this deck that is one of the criticisms it's received is that it's a little bit hardcore. There is nothing fluffy about this deck. It is not in any way imbalanced. It shows nature in a real way, like a National Geographic kind of way. So you're going to see, like, even here, is this one of them? Yeah. Even here in the Two of Roots, which is the Earth suit, you see a fox, I think that's a fox, right? Leaping over like a rabbit burrow, and it's already got like a bunny or some kind of critter in its mouth. Like I said, it's like National Geographic, Discovery Channel kind of nature, not the kind we typically see in tarot decks, which is like animal totems or like animal energy. This is nature, not just animals. It's deeper than that. And so as a result, it's extremely balanced. And again, I feel like I've gotten to learn so much. Like the conflict card, which is the Nine of, I believe this is the Nine of Feathers. Yeah, the Nine of Feathers, which is the Nine of Wands, shows two hummingbirds having a bit of a territory dispute. I would have never used hummingbirds in that context, but it addresses that in the book, that we think of hummingbirds as like these sweet, fluffy little things, but they're actually one of the, like, very territorial. So I learned something. And there's quite a bit in this deck that has taught me. And some of the images aren't fluffy. Like that gopher is about to have a bad, bad day. Or prairie dog, I think that is. You know what I mean? Like, this card kept coming up for me. The Two of Wands, which is success. The interesting thing about this card is this shows a coyote who has caught a roadrunner. Which, if you know, like old school cartoons with, you know, Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, they talk about that in this deck, and this idea that, okay, well, once you've completed a project, once you've finished something, there's like that hunger for what now? Like, what am I going to start next? And that's kind of what this card talks about. But it's memorable because I know that that is a coyote who has finally caught his roadrunner. Like, I love that about this deck. So, actually, it was working with this deck that made me realize that I am not ever going to connect in a way like this with the Wild Unknown Tarot or with the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit. So it was actually working with this deck this week that let me officially take those decks out of my collection and set them aside for rehoming. So, good nature deck, and it is all I would want or need in a nature deck. So I'm really, really pleased. I really enjoyed working with it. Can't wait to pull it out again. And it's a very neutral deck that I think tells things how they are. I don't think there's a lot of fluffiness here. I don't think it's mean. Like, I don't think it's going to kick your butt or anything, but I think it could if you needed it. So, very pleased with that. It's in a bag now, but I am going to be putting it back in its box and just probably tucking the bag in with it. The bag is mostly because I was carrying it with me in my bag to work, and I couldn't take that big clunky box. But I think for storing it, I am going to keep it in its really beautiful carved box. But I loved working with this deck this week. This is a fast favorite, so I'm really, really, really pleased with that. I have mixed feelings about my animal deck this week. So my oracle deck, my animal oracle deck, is the Spirit of the Animals? Yeah, Spirit of the Animals Oracle by Jody Bergsma. This is beautiful, and I'm super happy to have it, do not get me wrong. But it's got a little quirk. And the quirk is my fault. I want to make that really clear because I went on one of the Facebook groups and was talking about that, and somebody was like, ask for a replacement. But I'm like, no, this is totally my fault. So I, as you know, you can see behind me, I like to hang my decks. And that combined with the fact that I also like to riffle shuffle my decks. Like, I riffle them and I bridge them, and I'm not gentle on them, and I don't typically mind that they get, as a result, a little bit bowed. And not all my decks do this, by the way. In fact, most don't, especially most with a thicker cardstock. The Spirit of the Animals Oracle has a thin cardstock, which you can kind of hear. It's like a thin cardstock, combined with the fact that these cards are big. Like, this is my face, and this is the deck, and I don't have a small head. So, yeah, these are big. Now, I'm glad that they're big because they've got some extraordinary detail in them, and there's a good amount of text on the bottom of each card. The art is beautiful. The mix of animals in here is perfect. It's exactly what I would want. There is wild animals, but there's also dog and cat. There's also dragon and unicorn. And there's also some insects, especially ladybug, which I've talked about before, is very important to me. I enjoyed working with this deck. It was fine. It was beautiful. And normally a bow wouldn't bother me, but here's what bothers me about this particular type of bowing that this deck has done. It's not that it's just got a little bit of a shape. It's that, you know in the 80s or maybe the 90s, there was those snap bracelets that you could smack your wrist with and it would wrap around your wrist. And they had kind of, the way that they worked is that the actual plastic inside had like a little bit of a concave bit. And so when you would hit it against something, the concave would flip and that's what would make it curl around your wrist. That's kind of what these do, because listen, they snap either this way or this way, or this way or this way. They make that sound and they literally snap back and forth into either a bow where the face of the cards is curved up or the other bow where the backs of the cards is curved up. And it's driving me a little bit crazy. Now, I know I can fix this. I know I could press these. I just did it again. I know I can press these. I know that if I kept them in their box with something to keep them pressed down, they would probably stay flatter. I know that if I stored them flat instead of hanging, they probably wouldn't do this. I know that if I didn't riffle shuffle, they probably wouldn't do this. But I like doing all of those things. And I don't want to have to be precious about a deck in that way if I don't have to be. So I kind of just let myself get over it, and I would just still rifle them and shuffle them together. And I tried to just mostly keep the bow going one direction. But then whenever I would pick it up and it would snap, it would just drive me a little crazy. So I love them. I started like hand over handing them because then I was much less likely to have it snap back and forth like that. Like, I got kind of neurotic about it, I'm not going to lie. And it was more annoying than I wanted it to be. And it made me super sad because I was up against, so this deck is exactly right from a mix of animals perspective. I love the realism in the art. It's beautiful. It's so well done. The messages are good. Look at the bumblebee. The art is so vivid and beautiful, but I'm a little spoiled by cardstock. And especially, I think, working with the Brady right next to it, I was like, beautiful cardstock, kind of shitty cardstock, beautiful cardstock. And it kind of highlighted it. And it made me bummed because Colette Baron Reid's Spirit Animal Oracle, which is also out, which I was kind of trying to decide between the two, has that nicer, beautiful, matte, thicker cardstock that doesn't do this. So I have issues with this, but I still really love the art, so I'm super torn. I don't think I would want to give this up because I really, really, really love the art and I love the mix of critters in here. And I do think this was a great choice to pair with the Brady Tarot as well, with the realist art. I think that this was a lot more balanced of a deck. I think something like the Colette Baron Reid's Spirit Animal Oracle next to the Brady would have felt disjointed and kind of strange. This did go really nicely with it. So it's just a tactile thing. The only issue I have with this deck is tactile. But that snap it drives me a little crazy. So there's that. Also, I have this like paper spreadsheet and I don't know if you guys have seen these. I know Kelly at Truth and Story talks about these, but I don't know what to do with it. I kind of want to cut out, and of course they do put the unicorn on it, right? I kind of want to cut out the unicorn on it and maybe just cut this bit out, but then can I iron paper? It's got folds in it. Can I iron it and make it pretty? I'm tempted to like hang this up somewhere because it's so beautiful. I'll never use it as a spread like thing, but it's so beautiful that if I could just cut this bit out and like iron it, that would be so pretty to hang up somewhere. But then there's all this good stuff at the bottom too. So I don't know. What have you guys done with these? Have you hung them up? I think Simon had a Deviant Moon spread sheet like this that he somehow hung, and it looked really cool on his wall. But I don't know. I don't want to waste it because it's so pretty, but I don't know what to do with it. So if you have one of those or you have this deck, what have you done with yours? What are you going to do with yours? Tell me. I want to know. So that is the Oracle deck. It's a solid, like, 4 stars. I would say the 5th star is missing just because of that tactile experience, but I'm really happy with it generally. I just wonder how excited I'll be to pull it given that tactile thing, since I'm such a tactile person. So we will see. Colette Baron Reed's deck might have to also come into my collection, you know, for comparison purposes. Just saying. The spread cloth that I was supposed to be working with this week totally didn't work with this week. I kept leaving it at home, but it's so cute with its unicorns, and then it's purple on the back. So I think I'm going to work with it this week, if I can remember to put it in my purse so that it's with all of my good stuff and my decks and so forth. So I'm going to try to work with this one this week. So I've got no real opinion on it. I don't even know why I throw these in here. It's just that I do rotate them, so I like to share. You guys don't mind, do you? I'm excited though because I get to work with another new deck this week. My beautiful Moonchild Tarot. So this, I'm actually really proud of this bag that Peggy made me for it. I asked her to make me a design, like we worked together on what design would be good for this deck. The box is stunning. I needed her to make me a slightly bigger than her standard bag so that I could still keep it in its box, because there's no way I didn't want to touch and play with this box every time I pull out this deck, because this box feels so good, and it's got like some gold accent on it. It's got like texture here. It's so pretty. But when it came to the design for the bag, I knew that I wanted a white design, and this is actually a white fabric with some like silver running through it. And then I knew that I was torn. Like originally I was like, well, maybe could you embroider me like a gold crescent moon like that? Thinking maybe simple. But then I was looking at the card backs. I'm just going to show you what those look like if you don't already know. And the card backs, I almost said box, the card backs have this really cool cartouche on them with a bunch of other embellishments and stuff. And I was like, well, I want a cartouche like this, but I want all the moon phases in. Like, I think that dark one at the top maybe is supposed to represent the new moon, but it's kind of oval. I wanted this, but I wanted the full dark moon at the bottom. So I asked Peggy to design it for me, and she did. So she took this same idea, the cartouche, but she added this 4th moon symbol to it, and it became kind of her own cartouche design, because she took the same idea but then perfected it and made it so it had all 4 moon signs in it. And I posted this. Oh, and I also had her use like a dusty purple for mine for the inside because of the purple accent you see sort of in the box lid here. I put this on my Instagram, like right next to the card backs, and people went completely crazy. I think she had 2 other bags with this same cartouche on it in her shop, one purple and one black, I think, bag in this size, so the same like extra jumbo-y size, and they've already sold, but I'm sure that she would be happy to put up more if people were into it. But anyways, I should stop talking about Peggy stuff because that's not what I'm here for. But look at, she even put like that dusty purple thread in the decorative stitching up at the top. Anyways, I love, this is probably my favorite bag she's ever made me, and I've even been hanging it on my rack behind so that it like faces forward instead of hangs to the side, because it's so pretty. Anyways, that's not, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I just get really excited. I'm super stoked for this deck because I have the Star Child. I finally bought it. I love the artwork. I have a hard time connecting with it. I'm going to be working with it for a full week coming up in, I think, January, if not a little sooner, and then I'll have a better formed idea. But a lot of those cards to me don't really show, they're not quite as illustrative of the meaning of the card that I'm familiar with. That Fool card is freaking stunning. So I'm excited to work with the Moonchild because when I watched flip-throughs of the Moonchild, I found that, I'm going to get out of the majors here so you know what I mean. Let's get into the minors. I found that the minors in this deck just do a much better job of showing the meaning of the card. Of course, I pick a couple that don't do it as well. But I mean, and I don't know what all it is. I love the contentment here. Or the sort of freedom to be yourself, I guess, that relaxation. And maybe the Pentacles isn't the best suit. Maybe I'm just making this up. I guess we'll know at the end of this week once I've actually worked with it. Okay, here's a good one. Four of Swords. So that's a little bit more like what I might expect to see in a Four of Swords. And I like that. I like that we still get the person here surrounded by swords in the Eight of Swords. I like that we feel the swords coming down on her here in the Nine of Swords. It also kind of makes sense to me that just aesthetically or thematically that this deck I would feel more connected to than the Star Child, since I am such a moon baby and not so much a star baby child. Star child. I'm more a moon child than a star child, so that kind of makes sense. There's a lot about this artwork that I love that devil. Love it. There's just a lot about this one that I really, really like. So I will be working with it all this week. And I also, before I put this away, I will also say that I'm excited to work with this guidebook because Danielle and Noel must have listened to people, because there is a artist description of what you're seeing in the card and how it relates, as well as a full like write-up for the card. This is a minor card too. And there's even some inquiry, which I see sort of like almost like journal prompts or things to contemplate about this card. And an affirmation for each card. And in the majors, there's even more information. There's some information on the moon's cycles here. Yeah, that's right. In the majors, she also has gemstones for each major card, as well as an astrological association and some keywords. Like this guidebook compared to the Star Child guidebook feels a lot more complete and helpful. So I'm excited to be digging into that this week. Cannot wait to get some quality time with this deck. And the Oracle deck I got to go alongside it, I actually bought specifically, like I broke my no deck November 1st for this deck so that I could work with it next to Moonchild, because it just felt like it would go really well. And that is the Oracle of Mystical Moments. And this deck is by Catrin Well-Stein. And I looked at this deck a few times. These are the backs. So lovely. And I've already edged them in a color that's almost identical to the backs. I don't know how well it'll show on camera, but it's like basically an exact match for this color. And just looking at the images, I was like, I don't know, does this even make any sense? And then I read the guidebook and I was like, yes, I'm getting this deck. Because in very short paragraphs, the guidebook does an excellent job of giving you a ton of stuff to chew on with each card. So I am actually really interested to work with this, and I'm also hoping that this deck will go really well when I get in my Alice Tarot from Baba Studio next year. I feel like this might be a really nice accompaniment as well. There's a bit of that fantastical, dreamlike quality to it that I think will go well. But I'll let you guys know what I think of actually working with this deck at the end of this week. So watch for that video next Sunday. But that is it. That is what I've been working with. That's what I'm going to be working with. So this week it'll be Oracle of Mystical Moments and the Moonchild, and I can't wait. So thank you so much for joining me. I would be super curious to know if you do a similar system, if you work with something in a dedicated way for a month or a week, whatever you're currently working with. Let me know down below. Leave a comment, thumbs up this video if you like this series, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I will talk to you all again very soon. Bye!